Welcome back. Today we're going to tie Delekta's Double Screamer. We did this one before. It was the single chem, and it was the traditional, black and olive with some silver on the belly. I have no idea what color combination we're going to come up with today. I'm just going to kind of make this one up as we go. But we'll have the recipe for you for the steps on this fly. So we're going to do this one in olive yellow gold mix today. We're just going to kind of, like I said, wing it on this one. But this olive and yellow is one of my favorite color combinations to fish. I've done really well on this in the past, so figured we'll do one of these and see what we can come up with. So we're going to start on this one with a Marabou tail. I'm gonna go with some yellow, and then we're gonna stack some Chickabou on top of that. So we'll just start out with one piece right here on the bottom with the yellow. Get that tied into place, set that about the length of the hook. One wrap over the top, secure that into place, and then we'll just even this out going back. This is a size 4 70-50 from MFC. It's just a standard 3X long streamer hook, size 4. Could have scaled this one down to a size 6, but I'm going to keep it I'm going to lengthen it out just a little bit. So now we're going to go with some Flashabou. This is gold holographic. Just going to take 2 to 3 strands and double it up. And then run this down the side. No different than what we typically do with Marabou tails. So I'm just going to set that just short. Actually, for this one, we're going to run this a little bit longer. We're going to run that past our Marabou tail, because we're going to wind up putting some Deceiver tails in this as well. It's going to be a little bit longer than the Marabou. So let's lengthen that out just a little bit. We'll have our flash running past the Marabou slightly. So we'll just take and even that up like so. Have our flash going back past that, and then we're going to go into an olive Chickabou patch. Try and find something that's decently thick, long enough to where it's going to fill out this tail section for us. That's a good piece right there. Then we'll just peel that back and get that tied in over top. There we go. Set that into place, making sure that you're staying right on top of your hook, not kicking to one side or the other, and we'll just follow that back to the barb of the hook. So there we go. We've got our Marabou tail section setting in there. Now what I want to do is go into some saddle hackle. We're going to go yellow first on this. Find 2 that match up pretty well. Those 2 look good. I'm going to take those, set that off to the side for now. And then I want to find some olive Grizzly about the same size. Get that off to the side. Those 2 look pretty good. About the same size all the way around. Yellow may be a little bit more heavy on this one. So then we're going to take this and we're going to run it back about 1.5 times past our Marabou. So I'm just going to tie these in one at a time. Once again, stacking the olive on top of the yellow. So there's one. We'll get our olive tied in here. Stack that on the top, same length. That looks pretty good. Get that tied in there. There we go. And then the same thing on the other side. I'm just gonna measure these out for now in my hand. Kind of peel everything back at the same time. That length looks pretty good. And then bring this on the opposite side. Once again, the olive stacked on top of the yellow. I'm not really worrying too much about these laying straight back. If there's a little kick to them, if there's a little twist, that's not the end of the world. These are back there mainly just for motion and a little bit of color breakup. So if they give you a little twist, it's not going to make or break the fly. But that looks pretty solid right there. This one has a little bit too much of a kick though. There we go. Just had to get the orientation setting right. So there we go. We have a Marabou tail with some flashback there, and then 4 strands of saddle hackle, both 2 yellow and 2 olive. So now we're just going to take and form a dubbing loop. Get this into place, take that up to the front. Leave yourself just a little bit of room because we're going to throw some more Marabou stacks in there, or Chickabou in this case. Get a half hitch on this. And we're going to go with some gold ice dub for our body. Take some of this out of the pack. These are some pretty long fibers here, longer than you'll typically see with regular ice dub. It's almost like a chopped holographic, really, or a chopped Flashabou. So it's going to be able to, it'll pick out a little bit for us. And I don't want this spun real tight. I want to be able to have that picked out section in there. It just gives a little bit of volume to the body of the fly. And then there you go right there. You got a couple of wild ones flying around. You can just pick those out with your hand real quick if you want to. Got a couple of really long fibers sitting there. Just kind of pick through those a little bit. They'll come out over time, the real long ones. So if it really bugs you, you can go ahead and do that. But if not, it'll even itself out. Now we're going to go back to the Chickabou. I think I'm going to put 2 pieces in here, unless I can find one that I really like, just for some volume. Set that to the side. I'll see how this looks once it's on the hook, but more than likely we'll wind up with two plumes on this. Yeah, we'll put 2 on. So there's our first. It's running back into our tail section of Marabou. I'd like something just a little bit longer to give a little bit better coverage. That one's all twisted up. This will work. This will work. This will go back into that tail section just a little bit further, get me about to the halfway point on that tail section of Chickabou. Just get that secured into place, and then everything just sits back right like that. Now if you want to here, you can add a little bit of flash going back through that if you would like. I'm not going to. I'm going to wait until I connect the 2 hooks, and then I'm going to add my flash from there. Alright, so get that whip finished. Then we're going to take just a tan. I'm going to go ahead and touch that up a little bit. And our back hook's complete. I'm going to take some articulation wire. Now on the original on this doesn't use beads, so we're gonna go with that. We're not gonna use any beads on this one. We'll just set that off to the side for now, and then we're gonna bring in a 1550 size 2. This is a Daiichi hook, and we'll set that in the vise. I've got just a gold brass bead on there for now. Then I'm gonna give about 3 wraps of 25 thousandths lead wire, and we'll snip that off. This is just to keep the cone head secure. So bring those together, grab a little bit of zap, toss that right on that wire before we push it into the cone head. Push that in, and that'll secure that bead, or that cone really nicely out in the right on the front. You're not going to have a lot of movement from that bead, or from the cone head. Sorry, I keep wanting to call it a bead. So then I'm just going to make a couple of securing wraps right there to make sure that that lead wire is not going to go getting pushed back or anything on me. Once that glue dries, that's locked into place. I just want a nice thread base right here. I'm going to bring this down to the bend, or down to the barb of the hook, going slightly back on the bend of this. And then we're going to bring in our back hook here. Get over here. Make sure that your wires are running parallel as always, and then just run that right like so. And then that's about the connection that I want right there. Like I said, I'm bringing this down the bend of the hook just slightly. And then that's about the connection that you're looking at, right about there. That distance. And then just work these wires up to the front. Give you a nice thread base over top of them, secure the wires into place. as always, I just like to double these over. It gives me a little bit more security on my connection. So those are sitting how I want them. And then I'm just going to trim these off. Like so. Just clean that up with a couple of thread wraps. We're good to go. Get that in the clamp or in the material clip. Get that out of the way so it doesn't wind up in our thumb. And we're going to go into some Flashabou again. I'm going to take about 2 to 3 strands, somewhere about that. And I want to run this back into, what do we got there? 3 strands. And I want to run this, like I was saying, I want to run this back into my back section, or into my back hook, probably about halfway back, maybe even going slightly into the tail on the back hook. So there we go, right like so. Just adding a little bit of flash to the body, working kind of as a lateral line as well, going back in there. This fly does have a lot of flash to it. Very good fly for bright, sunny days. Now we want to work a little bit of a skirt section. So you can see I have that piece of Chickabou going back into the last piece that we tied in for the back hook, and I have it cannoned to my side, and that's just acting as a little bit of cover for our connection. And I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. A little bit more of a connection, a little bit more of a cover between the two. Just clean that up with a couple of thread wraps. Everything's looking good how we want it so far. And then we're going to go back to some saddle again. So I want to take 2 yellow saddles and 2 olive Grizzly. Try and get these in the same ballpark again. Those 2 look good. Come on. Those 2 look like a good match right there. Get that off to the side, and then I'm going to match those up just like I did before with the olive. So there's 1, 2. Those look pretty good. So I'm going to match these 2 up. And I want to run these back a little bit into where I tied in the original ones back there, as you can see. So I'm going to take these, measure those out to the length that I want them. And I'm just going to tie those in together. Those actually got a little bit long on me, so I'm going to peel those back some. Alright, secured into place, everything's looking pretty good right there, and you can see that they're going back into the tie-in point for the originals. They may be a little bit on the long side, but I kind of like the way that they're setting, so I'm going to leave those be. And then same thing on the opposite side. This gives you a little bit more coverage. For the skirt section, adds a little bit of motion as well, and a little color breakup. So that looks good. Once again, I'm just tying these in at the same time. I'm not worrying about orientation too much, just as long as I have them going laterally. Alright, everything's starting to come into shape there. Everything's starting to look pretty good. Now what I want to do is go with one more piece of Chickabou over the top to give me some more coverage. So I want to work this back to about my tie-in point, get some good secure wraps in there. You can see we have really nice coverage between the two. You can't even tell where that connection point is. So now we're going to go back to the Chickabou. Doesn't have to be a perfect piece. I just want something a little bit longer that's not all twisted up. There we go. That looks pretty good. And that just adds to the continuous look of the fly. It doesn't look disjointed. That Grizzly portion, as you look on the top, that one's a little wet right there, but it just has a continuous look on the top portion of that fly. So now, once again, we'll go with the dubbing loop. And I want to take that right up to about my tie-in point for the wire, or for the lead wire. And then we're going to go back to the gold ice dub. Let's see here, I got a little bit left over. So once again with the gold ice dub, like I said, we're not wrapping this really tight, or we're not spinning this loop real tight. We want that picked out effect to it. So we're going to set that in, give that one, maybe one more. That looks good to me. And then making sure that we have good coverage, we don't have any thread exposed through there. And then just run that body right up to the front. Just like so. So now we have just a slight gap between our body and our Conehead right there. And what we're going to do is throw in another overwing for the Chickabou. I'm going to do 2 on this one just to fill it out, to give me a little bit more bulk. Hopefully those 2 are good. Yeah, they look pretty good actually. A little sparse, but that'll work because we're throwing 2 on there. So just like before, I want this going into the previous stack that I have on there to give that continuous look. And I want to add some bulk, so we're going to go with 2. Alright, that looks pretty good. No stems in our way or anything like that, so looking pretty solid so far. Now, one of the last steps that we're going to take here, that looks pretty good actually. I'm going to double this up just like I did before. I'm going to take some yellow and Grizzly, and we're just going to make a collar right in front of our Conehead. We're just going to palmer a couple of turns of saddle right in the front. If you want a little bit more bulk, you can go with schlop in here, but I'm just going to go with the Grizzly, or with the saddle I should say. Get both of those at the same time. Just throw our Hackle pliers on there and get probably 3 to 4 wraps is what I'm going to want. Looks like I got some trapped in there. There we go. That's good right there. I was going to try and sneak in one more turn, but that looked good to me, so I'm going to trim that off. There we go. We have that nice blend of colors with the Grizzly and the yellow in there. The yellow kind of takes over a little bit, which is kind of what I wanted, because we're going to transition into a gold throat right here, or gold head with some ice dub. So we'll transition from that yellow to the gold Conehead. This is the last step in this fly. And the only thing that we're really after here, well, two things, like I explained, we're working that transition between the saddle and the Conehead, but then also we're filling that gap in right there. So I'm going to have these pretty loose wraps, and then I'm just working this ice dub, trying not to capture my saddle. I got a couple of pieces that I caught right there. There we go. And then we're just filling in that gap. That's looking pretty good. I may need to pick some of that out in the very top. Just a little bit. I'm going to have to pick a little bit of that out. So with this picked out ice dub that we have, when this thing slicks back, it's going to transition back into, you can see how it has those longer fibers. That's going to transition back into the Flashabou that you tied in earlier. So I like that nice and picked out, the way that it sits right there. I'm just going to grab a bodkin and pick some of this out to fill that out slightly. That should do it. We got a wild Hackle in the back standing up on, or the wild Marabou plume in the back. But that is Dan Delekta's double screamer. Grab the wax key here if I can find it. There we go. I'll just take and spin this, give you a good look at the finished product in the back camera. Go over the top there, you can see that nice transition all the way through on that top side, and then we've got some yellow on the bottom with the olive Grizzly flowing through, and then all of the ice stub that's going to wind up going back. Like I said, this is a great sunny day pattern. This is one that I'll go to a decent amount on those really bright days. This thing has a ton of flash to it, and it really seems to generate some reactions from the fish. So there it is. That is the finished product. If you guys have questions or comments, leave them with me and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next Wednesday.